In this video we're going to show you 5 movements, 5 exercises to improve your overhead squat mobility. What's up everybody, it's Fritz from My Performance Coaching, and in this video, 5 for Friday, going to show you 5 exercises to improve your overhead mobility and overhead position strengths, to improve your snatch and overhead deep bottom squat position, and increasing your range of motion and mobility to support those movements heavier, more often, more regularly, and more intense without being in pain again, or as much as you probably have been before if you're searching for that video. Let's go. So this video is all about your shoulder mobility. It's not really about the hip mobility or the lack of thoracic extension mobility or thoracic or spinal mobility. It's not about your knee mobility and not your ankle mobility. We're talking about shoulders. So if you got lacking key performance indicators in those other categories, on the hips, the ankles, the spine, or somewhere else, search for those videos here on my channel. This video we're going to talk 5 exercises to improve your overhead mobility and especially mobility strengths, to be stronger and support more load in your snatch and overhead position. And the key performance indicators I usually talk about in the snatch or in the overhead squat position is, at first, are you able to get in a comfortable overhead position at a width that fits for you? So a lot of people are able to squat like this, even like this. That's all fine. In this video, it's usually about doing something that is your snatch. So remember, what's your marks down here? Get into your snatch position, and you're usually not in need to squat in another position unless your wrists start to hurt when you're doing heavy overhead squats. When the overhead squats get heavy and your wrists support that position better, probably just go to do that, but you won't be able to snatch that weight going up. So keep in mind, now we're talking about doing it in a snatch position. Just checking my hands. Movement number 1, thing number 1 to improve mobility when you get into position is definitely spending more time in the overhead squat. So find your position, go down and rest down here, and improve your position by doing it. Yeah, just be here and find out what's comfortable, how to move your shoulders, how to support the weight. When you're not able to get down here and your limiting factor is here, just stay here, but get into those positions and practice the positions. Just do it. Yeah, just improve the positions by doing. That's definitely tip number 1. Do overhead squats and use your time to do it. And when you're getting better, just pause at the bottom down here and rest here and give it some tension, give it some time on attention. And now we're going into movement 2. The second one is the SOTS press. So we get into our overhead position. If you're not able to sit snatch this barbell thing, get up, get down again, but check what weight you're going to need. Usually, if you're a beginner and not that strong in your overhead squats, the male barbell or the female barbell might be pretty heavy. So maybe on this exercise, start with a broomstick or something that is as light as possible to get a feeling. So at first, when you got your weight, I just started this because it's already here. We're going here, yeah. And the exercise now is lowering the bar to your neck slowly, 3 to 5 seconds, and then pressing it out. And that's the movement, yeah? We're getting really nice tension on your internal and external rotation of the shoulder, your shoulder girdle, and everything that usually supports the movement gets a lot of time on attention. It's perfectly balanced in your overhead position when you're able to get in a comfortable, strong overhead squat. And that's probably the best way to improve your overhead position for snatch and clean and jerk. If you're able, sitting here down in your snatch position and pressing load up. And you can even load this movement with more load, with more weight, when you get comfortable around repetitions from 5 to 8, maybe 8 to 12. then you should definitely start to progress even in mobility. So mobility as well is about training progressive, improving your mobility strengths progressive. So those are the two movements with the barbell, because that's where we started to show the movement. If you're struggling even to get in those positions, what you can definitely do as well to strengthen your shoulders is using dumbbells, bands and kettlebells. And we have got 3 more movements with a dumbbell, a band and a kettlebell. So next 3. Exercise number 3, we're going to use a tube. You can use a band or 2 bands or whatever as well. I just have got this here because Isabel just took all the bands for her personal training. So that's all I have. And from here, we're going in a pressing position as well. But in that position, the band is pulling us forward. So it's pulling the shoulder into internal rotation and we have to pull it back into external rotation. And usually, if you're losing the weight somewhere in the front, your internal rotation is, little bit more pulling into the position. So your external rotation. So usually when you're missing the weight in the front, your external rotation is not strong enough to support this position. And of course you could go into your global gym and take dumbbells and do this external rotation overload training that is pretty well to build this muscle, but the transfer into the movement you need in the end, pressing overhead, is really low. So what we do is using the movement you have in the end and transferring that to a movement that improves the weakness. And the weakness, if the weakness is the external rotation in the press, we're going to overload the external rotation by getting in that position and from here going into the press. And what we're going to have now in the press and in the overhead position, we have a press that is 101, the movement we need for getting stronger here, and we overload the weakness that we have to train more to get those balance we need to support more weight. So what we're simply doing is overloading that what's weaker to make it stronger. And just showing the movement once again with a little bit more time without talking. So movement number 4, using a band again, is the same thing as we did before, but now we're not overloading the external rotation in this position. We are going to overload the external rotation in this position. So we're placing a band that's pulling from here. So we have to, the band pulls us in this position. That's internal rotation. And we're going to overload this tension so that we have to pull into external rotation because the band is pulling us into internal rotation. Makes sense. So we're going to place the band somewhere here, and from here we're having the band pulling us into the internal rotation and we're supporting the external. So we have to get force and we have to produce power into the external rotation. What we're going to do now is either going in a 1990 shoulder elbow angle, just getting the shoulder flexion. So that's all what the shoulder does to 90 degrees. Or we do even just doing 2 more reps to have the camera angle. So the thing here is that our shoulder blade is moving in front. And that is what we need to get a really good overhead position. Usually most shoulder blades don't rotate in front, so we stay here. But we need the shoulder blade there to get the arm behind our ear. And if you are really good at doing that and your shoulder blade is moving well, you can increase the level by doing that, straightening the arm and doing flexion and elevation at the same point and still overloading the external rotation. So number 4 is basically 2 in 1. And number 5, movement number 5 is the most complex one without a barbell in this manner. And we're going to take a kettlebell or a dumbbell going in a straddle position. And from here, we're going to do a windmill, a kettlebell windmill. And by doing that, we are having to balance the weight in a straight position overhead. And that, is pretty challenging for the shoulder to keep that overhead position, and we can still load it. And the best thing to improve your mobility is definitely overloading and loading weak patterns and weaknesses that you have in your movements to improve those. So we're going to take a kettlebell, doesn't matter the weight. The heavier you can go, the better it is, but we're starting here at 12 kilograms just because it's there. And now we're going down here, focusing, having the shoulder straight above our hand and just supporting the weight at all times in a stable shoulder position. And the heavier you can go, the more challenging this gets for your shoulder, and especially the heavier you go, the better your movement quality has to be. So this weight is clearly way too easy for me, so I can basically move the weight around in space as ever I want because it's too easy. If this gets tougher, as I present now with a green one, having more load, I have to keep my shoulder in the right place. And that's what this movement is about, keeping the shoulder in the right place where the shoulder can support the weight, and it is challenging. So that is all I have for 5 by Friday on this week to improve your overhead strength and your snatch and clean and jerk overhead position. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to get more information, more input about getting stronger, faster, better for the sports of CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting. I'm Fritz from My Performance Coaching from Berlin, Germany, and I hope I will see you here in a coming up next video. That was really terrible English. Yeah. Bye.